we have you four. I'll do the introductions again. So Klaus Kohlmayr from Ideas, Chief Evangelist and Development Officer as well, I think now. But yeah, Kari from Nordic Choice, or Strawberry as we can't yet call it. Charlie, you know from the previous session, and this reprobate here is Jordan, the founder and double act together with Adam from the Hotel Tech Report, the enfant terrible of the hotel space. So Klaus, I'm going to start with you because you're the furthest, and my voice has to travel all the way to see. But I think when we're talking about spaces and when we're talking about technology, the way that we can actually start to kind of capture what we were talking about with communities, what Kari was talking about in terms of empowering the teams. How do you think that, for example, gets captured from a pricing perspective? Do you think that the way that we think about actually monetizing, not just the spaces but also the experiences, dramatically changes in the next couple of years?
Oh yeah, for sure. First, thanks for having me here. I think I want to come back to one of the things that were said earlier, which is trust. And when we talk about pricing, it's all about trust and having the trust in the pricing that is, being established and sent everywhere. And as we kind of establish that trust, you can then branch out and obviously, price many more things than we've priced traditionally. So, what the social hub is doing, what others are doing, you can see that hotel companies in general, or hospitality companies, not just hotel companies, are trying to understand where the opportunities are, not just on the room side, but on any revenue stream. As an example, Ennismore, a division of Accor, drives more than 50% of their revenue from non-revenue items, right? And if you ever gone to a Hoxton hotel, for example, the revenue that they're driving out of bars and restaurants and others is significant. So we see in general a big trend towards obviously understanding revenue opportunities across the entire portfolio of a hotel, or bigger than just the room side, and we all need to cater to that for certain.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And so Jordan, since you're next to me and you're the new person or the last person to come into the stage, how do you think about that? Because you started Hotel Tech Report, but there's so many companies there that offer solutions for what is traditionally, I guess, kind of called alternative lodgings. There's different types of companies that are almost invading the hotel space, basically, from a technology perspective. Do you think that that's, there's a great vibrancy in that kind of hotel tech ecosystem, but do you also see that, it's changing, and do you see that the concept that you actually had for Hotel Tech Report, that has changed over time?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much exactly what we set out to do early on. Some of those new alternative lodging players have certainly gone up and some of them have come down, but ultimately what we're realizing is that there's really fine niche needs of travelers, and like Tom was talking about, that Surf Simply that I've already booked. I know you spent a lot of time in Costa Rica, but we have this new niche of travelers, and so if it's Sonder, these travelers don't necessarily need to be greeted by staff at the front desk. They want to have standardized design, they want to have as low cost as possible, and they want to know what they're going to get when they get there. And so Sonder started out building proprietary technology, and now they're more buying a lot of their technology. And so even with these alternative accommodations brands, what they find is that they're not software builders in many cases. Obviously, Rami will be speaking later, and they're building some software at Lifehouse, figuring out what are the right things that they could build on top of a platform like Mews. But ultimately, hotels are figuring out how to build the right tech stacks to deliver those experiences, for sure.
Yeah, and do you find, for example, that's getting harder and harder to actually kind of figure out what is the right tech stack, or do you think that people are actually kind of engaging with the technology a lot more and finding their way around it?
I think it's easier than ever. I think there's more information for consumers, and consumers in this case being hotel owners and managers. I think the tools are easier to use. Klaus was talking about some DIY tools that Ideas is building. You'd never think an enterprise RMS would have a platform where you could upgrade certain modular functionality with a credit card. And so it's getting easier. There's more information. It's more frictionless. Some of the tools are converging in the guest experience space. So upselling contact contactless check-in messaging. All these point solutions kind of popped up, and now they're kind of converging where hotels can get a solution that does all of the things that they need once the guest is on property.
Yep.
So like, for example, I mean, the hotel that we have the room block at, where I checked in yesterday at Hotel Jakarta, beautiful hotel, everything's so thoughtful. The rooms overlooking the water, just perfect in every way from a design perspective. But I got off a 10-hour flight from Los Angeles, and my room wasn't ready, so they didn't have contactless check-in. So had they known that I had landed early and I was off a 10-hour flight, I could have checked in from my mobile device on the plane, and they would have known. They could have I would have paid them basically anything to take a nap when I got in.
Yeah.
I would have either said, give me a room upgrade, which is the most profitable thing they could do, or book me a massage. And I would have even done that in destination. So I think the technology is getting easier, but hotels still are having a little bit of trouble figuring that out. But it's not rocket science. And there's tons of information, there's tons of easy tools.
Yeah, nice. I'll talk to their tech provider to see if they can help with that. But maybe, Karianna, I'm gonna go to you. There's, to that point, there's, a huge plethora of different things and different initiatives that you can do from a tech perspective. So, how do you prioritize? What do you think about basically? Like, what do you build first? What types of things basically do you think need to kind of be there to create a kind of successful breeding ground, basically, for some of those ideas?
I think, for me, I'm a bit traditional there. I think that digitalization should come from the bottom and up, and it's fun to do, like various initiatives that are like, this is a really cool thing because it engages people, it creates motivation. But if you try to build it top down, it's just going to collapse.
Yeah.
So obviously what we're doing with you guys now, with sort of changing the PMS system and the booking system and the sort of the platform connecting, I think that's the only way for us to do it. And we're an old company. We're approaching 30 years. We have a lot of legacy, and everyone tends to put off changing systems because it is risky. And even though, like you said, the technology is very good now, it's the people part of it that is hard, because you need to train everybody to do things differently. And for us, with 17,000 employees, that is a lot of change management.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's hard on people, it's information overload, and you don't know how to do your job anymore. You feel like you're going to fail. But I think that if you really make sure that the fundament is stable, that you get your steering data back, then you can do it. And then it's a bit of I don't know, we're trying anyway to do a bit of, waterfall and agile, switching between them, replanning every week, because you need to adapt to the environment and the things that you're learning. But you also need to stick to some sort of plan, because if everything's just going to change all the time, then you never know where you're going to end.
And how do you actually kind of set out that vision? How do you make sure that can be, I think that so much of the time, I think hoteliers especially kind of, undergoing that change management part. What are some of the tips that you can share, basically, like the way to communicate that through? Because people are afraid of change most of the time. People are afraid of doing the things that they've known how to do for the last 10 years or so. They feel that something's going to become obsolete.
I think for us anyway, and that might be true for many, it's a huge difference on how you speak to the hotel versus the people in the headquarters, actually, the office people versus the hotels. Because the people out in the hotels on the floor, they're very agile. They're used to, they never know what hits them the next day, what customers they're getting. Something might happen every day. So they are sort of trained, to adapt and improvise and change all the time. So for them, I think it's very much about talking about profit and what they can actually gain, because that's what they're measured on, guest satisfaction and profit. How are they going to manage their hotels? Well, at the headquarters, I think it's different, and you have to find the various departments, what actually triggers them, what they work with. But at the end of the day, the motivation will always be, can I do my job better, I think.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Then, Charlie, I think that's actually a great point. There was a beautiful part in Karianna's presentation as well about making sure that your staff reflect the people and the diversity of the types of guests that you're actually kind of getting in. So recruiting and actually kind of making sure that you have the right trained staff basically is a huge topic for this industry. How do you find it? Do you find it easier because it's more of a kind of it's a less traditional model, so you might be kind of hiring for less traditional types of people, or do you find that actually the kind of professionalization and the specialization that the hotel industry has created before actually helps you to find the right profiles?
Yeah, good question. I think it's difficult for us all to find good staff, and there's a shortage for sure in the market, and we're definitely seeing that on the payroll. I think we do have an advantage because we have such a hybrid model. So we get a lot of the sort of next generation hoteliers wanting to be part of this next generation type of hotel. So that helps. Our roles. I guess we have a lot of, we've moved away from receptionists to community hosts. So our ground floor staff are all community hosts. So it means that you're looking for a certain type of character and the skills we can train much more. And we don't have a very formal brand structure or organization, and our clients are quite diverse. So I do think it helps people. On the other side, it freaks some people out as well. So, if we get a traditional sort of hotelier coming in with a great CV and great experience, we can quite easily just freak the hell out of them because we're doing things, so differently from a traditional hotel. So I think all in all, I mean, we only see what we see, of course, but I do think it gives us a little bit of a head start on keeping and retraining staff, and because we own the assets as well, we own the full value chain. We can really, we've had people coming in as F&B and they're now head of community and HQ, or they're working from the finance department and then they're managing a hotel. So we're really able to help every individual, or we try to help every individual really find their own path and help them grow within the organization in whatever way they want.
Nice. And then what do you then think about, how do you measure their performance? How do you measure the types of things? I think that the big, in the tech world, we obsess about things like NPS, Net Promoter Score. What are the types of KPIs that you look at to measure their performance, for example?
Yeah, we lean on technology, so we use Office Vibe, which is a tool of the choice at the moment. We're really looking for participation, how active, how engaged are the team, how happy are they? There's a million KPIs that we review. I think we make sure that it's on our agenda on a monthly basis as part of the executive board. So, and we have a massive, our brand anyway has always been very diverse and inclusive. And we really want to be one of the industry leaders there taking that forward. So, recently we've gone through a couple of year program. How can we do even better? How can we take the next step forward? And we have a number of initiatives which are also listening to the teams. How do they want to be? How do they see the social hub being social? And how does that reflect on them as a team and individuals? And how can we bake that into our plan for the future? So nice. Lots of different things there.
Nice. So Klaus, back to you. I think that one of the things that I'm particularly kind of passionate about is the idea of, for example, removing the admin tasks of somebody kind of on actually at the reception or the front office, and really actually kind of thinking of every single person who works that floor and who works that kind of first experience as a salesperson, rather than some kind of admin task person. And I think that what you've seen in the last couple of years is especially kind of upselling tools and different ways that you can feed that that type of insight, basically. Do you think that that's, for example, the way that more and more people are thinking about pricing, or do you find any kind of trends in terms of the way that before, for example, the pricing decisions always used to be kind of made just at the time of booking, and it was fairly kind of in the background and in the back end. Do you find that, for example, now you're getting more and more demand to actually kind of drive that real-time decision making?
Well, I think it's kind of a broader context, coming back a little bit to the conversation before. When you think about technology and what you want to invest in technology, I think one of the key items that people maybe not always think about is how that connects to everything else that you want to put in, right? And how does the data flow between the different components of your tech stack, and how many integrations and how well defined those integrations are, right? And it's not about the piece of technology you buy, but how does that plug into your overall ecosystem? That's really the critical part. And how does that evolve over time and allows you to scale up, right? So when we think about kind of data and when we think about digitization that's happening in the world, as we've seen earlier today, this morning, guests are leaving more and more breadcrumbs, digital breadcrumbs, that we should all be utilizing better and better to optimize the outcomes. And the outcome might be better productivity, better efficiency, or better revenue in our case, through pricing decisions. So kind of from our philosophy, it's really how do you make all these different components smarter, and how do you help a commercial leader, as well as kind of anyone else who has a revenue impact, how do you make these tools that these people use smarter? So you mentioned upselling, for example, right? But there's many different tools that people use on marketing, distribution, sales, loyalty. The question is really how do you make all these systems smarter and make sure that those systems automatically make the right decisions at the right point in time so you optimize your revenues. So it's not particularly about one thing, it's about the tool set that hotels have, and how do you connect them, and how do you automate and infuse them with the right science. We call it revenue science. How do you infuse them with the right science to make sure that those systems understand what the optimal decisions are when you sell or market or distribute or create better loyalty?
Nice. And so do you find that, for example, even the types of people that you're speaking to at, groups or individual hotels are actually kind of changing? Because I think to a certain extent what I always found was, it's essentially like in a lot of different brands, the revenue manager is almost the CTO, basically, because they're probably the most clued up. Do you think that that's changing, or who do you think owns technology in this? Is it just the kind of the VP of technology, or do you find it's becoming more broader?
Oh, it's actually interesting because in our space, and we just had that conversation a couple of weeks ago, in our space, we typically always talk to the person in charge of revenue manager, business development person, commercial leader. And we've never traditionally talked as much to the CTO, CIO, is kind of the revenue manager made the decisions. The user persona who's using technology is completely changing, right? The revenue management, any technology is becoming democratized, so more and more people are using it that don't have the specialty to use them. And as an example, we've just built a complete new technology that's really enabling general managers and franchise owners and independent family hotels to use revenue management, even if they only have 10 minutes a day. And that's really where we're moving towards in technology. It's not sitting in front of a computer all day and looking at charts and graphs. It's having an app tell you what's happening in the background, what the system has done, using machine learning, artificial intelligence, for the system to actually tell you what's already happened and what action it has taken, rather than the user having to take the action. And I think that's the future. It's technology enabling the user to have the confidence and the trust that the system has already taken care of the mundane, daily, stuff. Pricing is not mundane, but the day-to-day stuff, so the user can then focus on serving guests or being more strategic.
Nice.
Can I just add in something there? Because I think this is really interesting, and I totally agree with you. And I have this vision, in 5 to 10 years, that we don't really have a tech department anymore. But the challenge, but I believe that the business should be doing a lot more of that themselves. But the challenge lies in what you said earlier with the architecture and the data flow. Because when all the departments are talking to their different tech vendors, that obviously can do anything, all of them, and everybody can integrate anything, and you don't really get that across. It's really a mess on the backside, and that's what I think it's a struggle for us to keep up with all these technologies being sold and all these opportunities to actually, connect the dots. And thank you, Omnibus. I know you're here somewhere trying to help us with the integrations back towards, the accounting systems and everything, the compliance of it all. And I think that our tech department will move maybe more from having engineers to actually having architects and integration specialists, data specialists, because that's what we can provide. Of course, obviously the backspace and security and all that traditional stuff as well. But when technology is democratized, then what we need to do is connect the dots.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
I find it so funny that that there's still digital offices basically in the same way that people do digital marketing versus normal marketing.
Just marketing,
and they're two separate
I know.
So I think with that's a great way to give you the floor again. How do you keep vendors actually kind of on their toes and being able to actually kind of do this? Because I think that people like us, we get off on see how many people we've got connected, see how many tech companies we've got but I think then it becomes really frustrating for the hotelier if some of those things actually don't work. So do you think that there's ways that hoteliers or technology vendors can actually kind of be better?
Yeah, I think honestly it goes back. I put some of the onus back on the hotels, to be honest. And I think the first thing is if you just look at any other business and then be like, would any other business operate this way? And then how do hotels operate? So look at Mews's business. Would your marketing team be the ones who are choosing your AWS servers or Azure? Like, your marketing team would only choose the tools they use. I think ultimately in hotels, the problem is you have CIOs, you have these roles that were developed 15, 20 years ago. They're buying technology for hotels that those individuals are not using.
Yeah.
So the decisions around who's using people who are using technology are the ones who should be making the decisions around what technology is being used.
Yeah.
Sorry. And so I think that's one of the big problems is the rift between buyers and users, especially for independent hotels. You shouldn't be jamming technology on your people, and also it shouldn't be reactive from the hotels. It's like vendors, Mews included, they have to keep reaching out, selling to hotels, getting there in the right moment, but no purchase decision should be made because Mews is the coolest PMS, or because there's this new messaging software that allows you to do contactless check-in and digital authorizations. Everything should be proactive instead of reactive. Everything should come from what are your QBRs right now, and then outline what are the tools that could potentially help you do that. It's not always going to be technology that's going to be the solution to the problem, but 7 times out of 10, technology is probably a good option. When you're thinking about how to run with a leaner staff, or your revenue management cluster teams at Marriott are gutted, you need a tool like Ideas to help you manage with a leaner team. If you have less staff on property and you need to maintain your SOPs, you might need a tool like HotelKit that has interactive checklists. So thinking about technology not as a reactive or shiny object syndrome, but thinking about it as being proactive. How does this meet my business goals? And I think on the vendor side, you just have to be realistic. The vendor's always got to be closing, always got to be hustling. And so there's certainly a responsibility to not sell snake oil. And hopefully at Hotel Tech Report, we provide a channel where hoteliers can see which solutions might have snake oil elements and which ones are not. And obviously every product is going to have users that don't like the product or like the product. But ultimately it has to be something that comes from a better buying process, better buying mentality and philosophy.
Yeah.
No. What I find really interesting about this conversation and listening to, and I understand, of course, the bigger the company is, the disruption that it causes, but what we've seen change in the last 10 years is incredible. I mean, just putting the customer right in the middle, the customer journey that we had 10 years ago, I mean, 80% of it's the same, they still make the same decision-making choices, but how that can be facilitated using technology is totally different today than it was 10 years ago. I mean, completely different. Yeah. And I think one of the things that we even find a challenge is some of the decisions we made 3 or 4 years ago, you're coming to the point and say, oh yeah, do we carry on with that? Because we made that decision and we invested some money and it's, we don't want to say we screwed up because you didn't screw up. It's just that things have completely changed. Yeah. And it is quite difficult to do that. And I find it difficult, sometimes we say with the revenue management system, can you prove to us that we've made the right choice and you've added loads of revenue? But meanwhile, our marketing team is not feeding the data in. And unless your hands are talking to each other, then you're not going to know really where the difference is coming from. And for me, I like it. It always comes back to your customer journey. Is your customer journey the right one? Is your tech journey the right tech journey? And then you're making sure that the systems are speaking to each other. Yeah. Because there's so much data available today that really has an impact on your revenue management system, affects your marketing strategy, affects your operation strategy. It's incredible.
The reality is that customer expectations have completely changed in the last couple of years, right? If I don't get a digital key now when I check in, I'm disappointed, right? That's like, what's going on?
What's going on, yeah.
And we've all been educated to shop online and book our Ubers and transact over Zoom or whatever it is, right? The expectation is completely different than 3-4 years ago, right? Yeah. And technology in the hotel world hasn't really caught up to that customer expectation yet to its full.
To be honest, the hotel industry, if you compare it to others, is in the dark ages. I mean, you've got you guys who've really come and revolutionized it. Middleware didn't exist 10 years ago in the hospitality industry. It's
well, the concept of the service bus, I feel like, has been there for like 30 years, and it's just, I think like it's now better that we're getting rid of the service bus and we're getting into a more kind of interoperable future.
And focusing on the customer. I think, what you guys have done and what everybody is doing is the customer is central. Who cares what's the history of a room? Yeah. To be honest, let's look at what's the history of the people using the room.
But do you find that, that, for example, even the demands of the people that you work with and the kind of, the knowledge and the skill set that you're recruiting for, is that changing rapidly, or do you actually is it more about enabling the team that you have, or how do you think about the right skill set?
Yeah, I think, I think the digital team, the technology team, whatever you want to call it, is we haven't built a hospitality team. We've taken people from more the marketing and the consumer and the customer side of the business. I mean, the reality is, we have an e-commerce platform. And how do you handle that e-commerce platform with X million people coming in? A shopping basket is pretty new in the industry, I mean, which is insane, and so when you start looking at that way, then you need a completely different skill set and luckily there's a tech crisis going on, so there's a lot of good people around at the moment. But yeah, I think so. We don't look at the hospitality industry legacy as a guide, and that's why we're working with you guys and to try and look forward and really putting the customer's needs in the middle of it all.
Nice. So I think that we have some time for Slido. So if anyone has any questions, just go to slido.com and Mews Unfold again there. I don't know if we have. Oh, we do. Would you be open to your technology partner or vendor providing you with advice and guidance on how to manage change and drive adoption? That's actually a really good general question of who do you get to consult? Is it consultancies from the outside, or should actually part of that be on the vendors and then actually, you're probably almost best here.
I mean, I think obviously you have to take it with any advice with a grain of salt and see what's the sales pitch behind it. But ultimately, it's why do Fortune 500 companies work with McKinsey? It's because they've worked with all of the other companies in your industry, and they've done change management, restructurings, technology, and IT implementation. So the vendors are the ones who have done this with hundreds or thousands of hotels. So if you're looking to change your front desk experience, Mews has probably seen, and your team has probably seen this done 100 times in different implementations, different hotel types, different market segments, different regions and everything. So why not lean on your vendors and trust them for that? But again, not going into it blindfolded there's nothing that's being sold at the end of this, but that's the best source of information.
Nice. And then Klaus, as a vendor, how do you think about that? Do you find that we all talk about the consultative approach to selling, but do you think that it's kind of taken on a much deeper meaning in the last couple of years?
Yeah, I think so. I think with any implementation of a system, you need change management. You need to consider the changes for your teams and your processes. And in some instances, when we have implementations, we actually have a consulting arm that does change management and all that. And sometimes there's an 18-month process to just get the organization ready for the technology that's going to come in, and we have services around that. And we've learned from the 22,000 hotels that we have installations with, certain things you need to do and certain things you shouldn't be doing, and we can then bring that across to the future clients as well. So we have that as a service for implementations. Yes.
Perfect. So we've gone a little bit over time, so I hope nobody's going to kill me backstage. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone here. It's been a fantastic conversation, and thank you all for coming in. So.